So, welcome. Good afternoon, good morning. And we have somebody from Canada, so it's good morning over there. We have somebody from Jessica, by the way. Where are you? You're in France, isn't it?
I'm in Berlin actually, but yeah, I'm French.
All right, okay, super. Right. And then we're all from Ireland. So you're very welcome. As you know, I've informed you girls what you're going to be learning today. It's all about testing. And of course, we're going into that exciting part of the whole project where we're going to start capturing videos and, telling our stories. And that's the most exciting part of it. So I'm so happy to welcome our two guests today from Shopify. Shopify have been so wonderful. They've been helping us for the past couple of weeks. Well done to Shopify. Let me quickly introduce the two of them first before we hand over the mic to Jessica. All right. So Jessica Bush, you know Jessica Bush. She was, I think, the second or third girls when we started, and she was phenomenal.
Oh.
Mind the way, she was fantastic. Right. So we're looking forward to what you have to offer today again. We love what you did the last time. So, and of course, we have somebody new, the very own Cynthia. Cynthia, can you just shout out, say hello?
Absolutely. My name is Cynthia. I'm actually from the marketing team at Shopify. So we're going to talk a little bit about recording your pitch. And I am so nervous to be here. I can't even tell you. I facilitate and I teach people all over the world about Shopify and business. And knowing what you ladies do and how you create it, I feel like you guys could teach me way more than I'm going to teach you. But I'm going to do my best to kind of share some things that I've learned over the years in selling and promoting the things that we do.
Super. I'm excited about it. I want to learn. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much. So without much ado, Jessica, the stage is yours.
Cool. So hello everyone. I'm not gonna introduce myself again because maybe you remember. But let me share my screen, and here it is. Can you see my screen? Is it working?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Sorry, because it's kind of awesome. Cool. So yeah, I'm still Jessica, and I'm still working at Shopify. So I'm a product researcher, and today basically we'll be looking at something that I do on a quite regular basis. Is basically testing products. And yeah, I'll hopefully give you some ideas of how you can test your prototype. So let's see if this works. So yeah, so the kind of testing we'll be looking at today is more usually called usability testing, and we'll go into detail about that. So the different things I want to look at is why you should test. So what's the point of testing? And when you test, what exactly are you testing? So what is it you're testing? How you're going to test? And who you're going to test it on? And a final point is, what do you do once you've tested? So these are the 5 kind of key points that I want to look at today. By the way, you can interrupt me at any point if you have any questions. If there's anything you want to comment on, feel free. Let's have this more as a conversation. So first point is why test? And the answer is pretty straightforward. The first thing is to test that it works. You want to make sure that the app you're building is working. But also the other point, I think that's really, really important, is for you to uncover any bias that you may have. So when you build something, you tend to build it, from your perspective, from what you know, and maybe sometimes you forget, the wider picture, the broader picture that there could be, and you may have built, unknowingly your product with some biases. So that's really important to avoid. But I will talk about bias a bit later on in more detail. So the second point is, what is it that you can test? And there's a lot of different things you can actually test. That's why sometimes it becomes a bit complicated. So The very first thing that people think about a lot of times when you talk about testing is the quality. And that's actually usually done by developers or engineers, which is you want to check there's no bugs, which means you can just take your app and just check. Everything's working. There's no broken link. There's no broken something. And that's just purely, the quality of it. Like, is everything working okay? Second aspect is you want to check is the usability. Like I said, is the app you built, is it simply working? Does it do what it's expected to do? Like the example of the umbrella, if the umbrella doesn't protect you from the rain, it's not going to be very useful. Maybe it can help you to do something else, like, I don't know, like hit someone or I don't know, whatever, protect yourself, but it's not going to do the purpose of an umbrella. The other aspect is ease of use. So maybe it's working, but maybe it's really, really, really difficult to use, and that would definitely be a problem. Other things you could look at when you're testing is, what's the design like? Do people think it looks good? The aesthetics, like, is it something that, is nice to look at? So sometimes you have really great products, but they don't look that great. And that's a dimension that's really important to cover. Then the next element is comprehension. You've built a great app, but if people struggle to understand it, that's also an issue. So the words that you use or how you explain things, that's also something really, really important to check. And another point you could look at is reliability. Like, is it reliable? Like, do people trust it? Like, maybe everything's working well, everything's understood, but maybe there's another dimension where people don't really connect. And I think especially with the app that you've built, a lot of it is, do people trust what they're looking at? The content you're providing, is it reliable to them? Do they trust it? Do they think, would they have to go double check? So that's also another important dimension. So in the case of your app, you have to reflect what's most critical. And I don't know if any of you, maybe now in the chat, you want to say what would be the dimensions that you specifically want to look at. But I think that would be really key to consider what would be the aspects you want to look at. I don't know if anyone in the chat, I'm looking now if there's anyone that has something specific to say, but I would probably recommend that you look at the usability, the comprehension, and the reliability. I think comprehension is a big topic in your context. I think the design aspect is not critical. I think it's important, but it's not as critical. So you really want people to be able to use your app, be able to do what they're intending to do with it. You want to make sure that they understand what your app is about, what you explain, what you mean, and that they also trust that the information you're giving them is reliable. So these, I think, the key aspects.
Can I step in if you don't mind?
Yeah,
of course. Question you asked there. And one of the things that we'll be looking at is actually the ease of use.
Yeah.
How easy can they navigate? That's key as well, because the people that we are going to be testing with, yeah, they would want to they want to move around the app and to ensure that, whatever, so that's one key thing. If you can look at that as well, that would be great.
Yeah. I think generally when you test something, it's really important that you test multiple dimensions. So I think sometimes it's more about the questions that you prepare. So in the questions that you have, and I'll give some examples, it's thinking, okay, you can have some questions that relate to ease of use. You can have some questions that will relate to comprehension. So you can look at the different elements that are kind of critical. So, but yeah, I think ease of use is definitely something that you can also just observe, how people experiencing the app. Then, so how to test? I think that's kind of a big question, is how do you actually test all these elements? And I think that's what you were saying, Evelyn, is really how do you come across that? So there's really two key aspects when you're doing a test. Is you can have a test that's moderated or a test that's unmoderated. And these sounds maybe complicated, but it's actually very simple. The moderated version, that means you're able to be present, even if it's not there physically, but you can ask people questions. So let's say I'm using your app and I'm doing this and doing that. you could be there virtually or sitting next to me, and you could ask me, oh, but Jess, why did you do this? Or why did you do that? And I can tell you, oh, I pressed there because that's what I thought I had to do, or etc. So we can have sort of a conversation where you can ask me questions about what it is that I'm doing in the moment. And the unmoderated test would be basically just let someone do it completely alone. You don't speak to them, you just let them do their thing. And then they can come back to you after and tell you what their experience was like. So there's different arguments for both. They're both very good methods, good ways of testing. And I think, again, it depends on the actual app that you have and also what dimensions you want to look at. I think in this situation, probably a moderated version would be best. So you could really ask questions to people as they're using your app. So yeah. So one way of testing is something called a 5-second test. And as the name indicates, it's really, really short. And it's really about giving someone a screen or a very simple maybe it's a web page or whatever it is, just one element, and asking them to just give their first impressions. So they don't know anything, they haven't been briefed, they don't really know a lot about, anything, that you're just presenting them something and you're asking them, what is your first impression? Or what's the first thing you noticed? What stood out to you? And so in this case, maybe you could ask them, what stood out to you? What's the thing that you notice the most? What do you think this is about? And so in a really quick way, you could find out, do people understand what this is about? So in this case, you could ask someone, okay, have a look at this screen. What's the thing that stood out to you the most? So let's say if I'm looking at this, for me, the thing that would stand out the most would probably be the word trauma. And maybe then you could ask me, what do you think this is about? And I would say, this is a support app. And that would be my way of interpreting what the app is without maybe even knowing what it's about. And if this is what you were expecting, then you're on the right way. But if someone says, oh, I think this is an app to order light bulbs because I see a light bulb on the top, then you could see, okay, there's a problem here. This is not what this is about. So it's a very quick way of getting people's first impression. So this is a way of testing comprehension. This is a way of testing also, design, aesthetics, or whatever that you get what things about. Another way that I recommend testing is it's a method called the thinking aloud test. And it's really one of my favorite ones. And it's essentially asking someone to go through a prototype and talk about it, like speaking out loud, like what you think you say. So for example, what I'm doing now, I'm sharing my screen. You could imagine that I'm on your prototype and you could ask me to do certain tasks. Like, okay, this is our prototype. What would you do now? Where would you go? And this is what you could do. So you could have someone just, explaining, okay, like, for example, like if I'm looking at this Google, Zoom, I would say, okay, this means I can do this. This means I can click here. I would click here because this or that. The person basically speaks out loud. So it's very simple. And when you do a think out loud test, you usually have tasks for this person. So the task could be, you tell someone, okay, imagine you would like to support a close friend of yours who has experienced, whatever kind of trauma you would like to use for this scenario. And you ask, how would you go to find information from experts using lore? So you just tell this person, okay, how would you do this simple thing? And you don't give them any other details. You don't tell them how to do it. You just see, can they actually do this on their own? And you see them doing it. And as they're doing it, they will tell you, okay, I will click here because I assume this is where I will find this, or I will do this, or I will do that. So it's really them explaining what they're seeing and their reasoning. So I think this would be a really great method of doing it. And you can also record this. So you could ask a person, go on your prototype, they share the screen with you, you look at it, you can record the screen recording like we're doing today with this presentation, and they can just explain it to you. So this could be a really great way of going into detail into the app. Another great way of testing, and I think you maybe heard about it before, is the survey way. So you could have a survey that you pass on to different people, and you could ask questions. How would you describe this app in one sentence? So that would test like comprehension. Do people understand what this app is about? You could ask them, have you used something similar? If so, what was this app or tool? And how does it compare? So you could ask them, what's the difference with another tool? And maybe you could dig deeper and ask another question, which one do you prefer and why? Another great way of, I think, just understanding, especially ease of use, is understanding how would you rate your experience using this tool on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being very satisfactory and 1 being very unsatisfactory. So you could have like little star system, and you just ask someone how good was this tool. And this is a really great way, because that way you could have an average score, and you could see, yeah, we're really, really good, like we're at 4.5, then your app is really, really good. If it's at 1 or 2, then something's wrong and you need to make some improvements. So it's a really quick way of understanding where to go. And then a great follow-up question to this, which I love, is always, if someone didn't give it a 5, you could ask them, okay, what would make it a 5? How would you get it to be a 5? And then the person usually is quite creative, and they can tell you, well, I would do this, or I would do that. If someone tells you it's already a 5, ask them what would make it a 10. And that's always when you find out those really crazy ideas that people have, and they're usually very creative. So it's a really good question to ask. Another great question could be, if you could ask the people if they've experienced any of the following situations, and you could give a list. So in the case of your app, kidnapping, having issues related to sexual abuse, etc. Like, they're very sensitive situations. So you could also say, prefer not to say, and that's also understanding and respectful of the participant. But if these people have had experience any of those, you could ask them how they would have felt if they had your app, how they felt they would have been helped, and what else they would want to support them. So maybe this could also give you other ideas or other topics to dig deeper into. So I think this is really, really good, especially with such a sensitive topic like the one you've selected. Another thing is, don't forget your participants have their own biases. So if you think about it, a lot of time, the recall bias. So often people think of the most recent thing they've done, or generally their memory is not perfect. So if you've asked them something, or how did this happen to you, or how was this and that, their memory is not always perfect. So you just have to be mindful of that we're humans, we're not machines. So we do sometimes forget in detail something. So sometimes even people forget, oh yeah, I did this last week, because you just sometimes it's automatic. You just even forget you did that. Another thing is observer bias. So this is especially when you have someone who comes and looks at you, you don't perform as well. Sometimes you want to impress the person sometimes. So sometimes you're rushing, or sometimes you're reading things properly, or doing things differently just because someone's looking at you. And this also relates to why I was talking earlier about the moderated or unmoderated. So just remember that when you're looking at people sometimes they just get a bit nervous, and that's when you have the observer bias. Another one is the social desirability bias, which is similar, as that if you ask someone, do you like this or that, a lot of times people will just say what you want to hear. They just want to be nice to you. And that's often why people don't really, especially if you're having an interview, they don't tell you really face to face some things that they're just a bit intimidated to tell you. So that's a key aspect to remember. Okay, and now moving on, who are we testing it on? So that's, again, a big topic, is who you should test it on. So simple answer is really your audience. Who is your target audience? These are the people you should definitely test your your app on, to try to find people similar to the people you wish would use your app. And also try to think beyond that. So always think what people call edge cases or outliers, which are people maybe you didn't expect or would have special needs. So maybe it could be maybe a situation where you have two people using it together. Maybe you have a situation where you have someone who is with a carer and this carer is helping them, or just situation that are maybe not your typical situation, but they could happen. And try to think about those situations. Try to think of the needs of people with sometimes special needs or other. And I think, again, something else that would be very helpful to test as well for your app is to talk to experts. So people who work in this field, people who already support victims of trauma, how would they look at your app? What would they have as advice as professionals to give you? Because they are in that field. So despite the fact that they won't be receiving the service, they can also give you great suggestions and things that maybe you hadn't thought about. So these, I think, would be the 3 different kind of people I would try to bring in to test your app on. And for example, if we're looking at these screens, they could be very different things that people may think. They could be people that have experienced domestic violence, would be maybe very different than those who've experienced prejudice. So for example, even the word ally, when you have in prejudice, is that clear to everyone? So maybe you will find people who are not familiar with those words. So maybe they will tell you, hey, I haven't heard that one before, or who is Sally? And sometimes you, especially if you do the thinking out loud, you could realize, oh, there's certain things we didn't think about. That's why it's great to bring in different people who can ask you questions and say certain things. There's also things you could do, if, for example, in the think out loud exercise, you could ask people to tell you what they think about the images, what it brings to mind, like lots of questions you can ask in the moment as people are looking through the app. Another key element when you're looking at who to test your app on is to also think whoever you invite to test it on, that make sure that you're being inclusive and you're having really a diverse representation of in your participants. So, and diversity is very broad. It could be, do you have equal representation of gender identity, people's sexual orientation, different race, but it could even go beyond that. You could think of, do you have different age representation? Do you have different socioeconomic representation? So, people of, not, super rich people, not people who are maybe struggling, having kind of all different types of people as much as possible. So again, try to be mindful of that you really have a broad representation. And also something that's very important to add to this is also thinking about accessibility. So to make sure that what you're doing is accessible as much as possible. So again, it could be physical disability, it could be cognitive disability. So, what is the experience like for someone that, for example, suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder? Maybe some images will trigger them. So maybe you could think about that. People who have experienced trauma, they may have PTSD. What about the experience of people who, for example, have visual impairments? Can they benefit from your app? And for example, in this little animation here, it says caption your content. So this is something you can think, okay, maybe someone who has visual impairment, can they hear the instruction? Can they go through the app? So some things to think about to avoid bias is make sure you avoid selection bias. So when you're selecting your participants, again, be mindful that you have a right representation of your audience, because if you just get people like you, then obviously they're going to probably think the same way that you do, but you try to get people different to you. The framing and wording bias. So think about the questions you ask, whether it's in the survey, whether you do the 5-second test or whatever. Don't try to avoid leading question, which means don't say, what do you like about this? Because if you say, what do you like about this? Then that means you think people like it. Whereas if you ask them, how would you rate this on a scale from 1 to 5? You're not asking them if they liked it or don't like it. You're just asking them, well, how would you rate it? But if I said, you liked this, didn't you? Then yeah, that's me pushing you to like it. Another thing is culture bias. So when that's basically perhaps you having prejudice or having stereotypical belief about a certain culture, and that could influence you into what you think about what this could be, what these participants could be. So how to avoid this biases? Basically, first thing would be list the biases. So look at your team, try to think, okay, who are we? Try put all of your different identity and try things you're not. So in your case, for example, you're all, quite young. How are you going to get the perspective of someone who's older? Try to think of all the things that you are and think of other people who are not like you and what to make sure that you do bring this other dimension. So that's, in respect to your team representation. Again, think about your representation. Think potentially about biases that you may have yourselves, things you believe, and think about those. A great way as well to avoid bias is by preparing scripts. So if you prepare your questions, if you prepare your survey, if you prepare all of these things, if you do interviews, you're following a script, which means you're not asking questions around this and you're really all having the same question. A great thing is also to have multiple moderators so that you have multiple people asking the question, not just one. And in that way, you can avoid having bias. Cool. So that's basically everything you need to do to test, which is, it seems like a lot, but it's easier than it seems. And you will know when it's correct. You will know when it feels right. So also listen to your intuition. But once you've done all of this, what do you do next? Simple answer is you make tweaks and repeat. And it sounds like a lot of work. But in a way it is. It's about making small changes. So every time is asking questions. Maybe you can combine different tests. Maybe you can start with a survey, make small changes. You go back and maybe you do a 5-second test and maybe someone makes a comment. Maybe you go back and sometimes it's changing a word. Sometimes it's changing an image. Sometimes it's changing, the positioning of a button. So sometimes it's not as big as starting from scratch, never. But it's really about being mindful of, okay, what we do, what we learn, what we do, what we learn, and just keep going at it. And that's how you learn. That's how you make things better. So yeah, that is it. And I don't know if anyone has any questions, but you can feel free to jump in and ask anything you want.
When you talk about selecting people when you talk about selecting people,
come on, introduce yourself. Come on.
Sorry, yeah. Okay. My name is Siobhan. So I'm just wondering, when you talk about selecting people for the test, how exactly do you go about that?
Yeah, so it really depends, again, what kind of test you're doing. So if you're doing a survey, if you're doing a 5-second test or think out loud test, the best way is, I think, for you to list, okay, who's your audience? Who are the people you want to talk to? So let's say I will go back to the screen. Wait. So what I would recommend is that you speak to your target audience, but you also speak to perhaps experts. And okay, I've went too far. I'll find it. And that you speak to maybe edge cases. So I think in that case, try, you won't have the time to speak to 100 something people, obviously not. So even if you do the test on 10 people, that would be already amazing. If you have a survey, obviously you can send it to more people. The best way to do is look at your own network. So maybe you have friends or family members that know people in your audience. Maybe it's going to an association. Maybe you have someone that works with, I don't know, association for young people. Maybe within schools you could find people that would know, like teachers that maybe work in organizations similar to that. So you could find people in your audience. And what you're building your app for is very, very specific for people that have experienced, very, very personal things. So that's also something they may not easily open up. But maybe you could put a post on social media as well. You could ask, hey, we're looking for participants and this will remain confidential. You could reassure them that no one's going to know what happened to them and you won't disclose their names, etc. So you could say, we're looking for people who may have experienced any of the following, and you could just list, please contact us, or here's the link to the test that we're running. So you could explain who you are, where you're looking for. So I would recommend social media, your own network, and I think these would be the best way of getting to that very sensitive audience. In terms of edge cases and outliers, again, this could be from the responses you get where you may find, like I said, maybe a situation where someone is a carer. So maybe you could ask, have you experienced this yourself personally, or are you representing someone who has? Things like that, so you could have an idea of who they are. And then the last point, I think, would be experts, where this, you could even maybe Google maybe people who live close to you, etc., and ask these people, hey, would you be okay to give us a time to answer some questions or have a look at this? And people are usually very open. A great way to find experts as well is a platform called LinkedIn, and it's for professionals. And also people, I think, there would be very open to taking part.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions? The question that Siobhan asked, I was actually going to ask that as well. I think a number of people, have that in their mind. But the one I was actually curious about is the one that you test through the video. How many people do you think you could do with that? Not the survey one.
Yeah, so the video one, it's one I really like, but it takes quite a lot of time. So if you do it like people just do it on their own, they can record themselves. But I think in this case, it's better to do a moderated version where you basically have a conversation. So it could take perhaps 30 minutes easily to just go over all of the screens.
How many people? How many tests?
I think in that case, the best thing would be to do it maybe on, I think 7 would be a really great number. I think anything about 5, because if you only have 3, you won't be able to see any patterns. But if you have like 5 and more, then you can start seeing patterns. So 7, 10 would be ideal. 10 would be a really great number because you could see certain issues. Main thing is to give tasks. So you ask people to do something specific, because that way you can test that they're able to do it. And the great thing is at the end, when they finished, you can have like little survey questions. So you can ask, how would you rate your experience on a scale from 1 to 10 or 1 to 5? So you could have things that people can reflect on after they've done it. So maybe 5 survey question max or 3 survey question max to just finish the experience would be great.
Okay, because I noticed in Marvel has it.
Yeah, it does.
And I actually practiced it myself, and I saw myself, it captured me, anything I click, it shows it and all that. So if we want to buy time and we decide to use that Marvel one, obviously that's not moderated, it's unmoderated. But how qualitative is the response going to be? Is there going to be any bias if you're not asking the person question, if you just give them questions to ask?
I mean, actually, the more further away you are, the less biased they would be, because the person's on their own, so they're not being influenced in any way. They're just completely alone. The only thing is it's a lot of work then to review the videos. And also sometimes people, they forget to speak out loud. So sometimes they're just clicking everywhere and around and you're like, hey, why are you doing this? But it's too late. But if you brief someone properly and you really tell them, hey, it's really important, think ahead, think out loud. So maybe that's why it's good. But Marvel can do it. And I think with Marvel, you also have the option to be present. So you can actually step in as well. So you could be there so you could ask questions. Okay. So yeah, with Marvel, you could do both moderated and unmoderated. So it's just sending the link and then it captures it. Okay. It's really great.
I really like that, to be able to read it, hear what the people are saying.
Yeah.
Any other question? Let me see.
I was going to ask a simple question. It's just, between moderated and unmoderated, Thank you very much, Jessica. I had, when you were actually going through it, I thought the unmoderated one would be things like the survey monkey, where you get the feedback and then now start analyzing it yourself. But with this, what exactly then would be that difference,
So unmoderated is really when you're not in the room or you're not asking the person questions. So the survey, is unmoderated in the sense that you're giving, the person to reflect on their own. But for example, for the think out loud, you could do it moderated or unmoderated. For the 5-second test as well. So you could be giving someone, hey, have a look at this. And you can ask them to do it on their own and come back to you. So you could send them the link and you could send them the link and say, hey, once you're done, please, come back and give us your points. So you could have like a survey, like they could do something completely alone. So that way you avoid what is, the observer bias. Like I said, sometimes people just want to please you. They want to be nice to you. But if it's moderated, the good thing is when you have a moderated test, you can ask questions. So for example, sometimes people do things that is wrong, like they will click on something and you think, why would they do that? But sometimes it's because, I don't know, because they use an other app where the thing is there, or this is the first thing that came to mind to them, or maybe they misread something. So sometimes you understand why people do something because it's because you're there, and then you can ask them, hey, I noticed you did this. Could you tell me why you did this?
Good. Spontaneous.
Right. I've learned so much today.
Cool. But if there's anything I can give advice on, so if you create questions, or if you you can always email me anytime. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, I can see Siobhan was asking a question that I think she made reference to me. So I think we're focusing on design first. Evelyn, is that right? You see, the type of questions that you'll be asking will take you from usability, ease of use, design, comprehension. Like she said, it's going to be all of them somehow. Maybe one question will be addressing one of each, isn't it? Is that correct?
What I was asking really is, we don't really have an app that you can navigate through and really say this is easy to use. We really only have the screens that they can look at and say this looks good, or this will be a good thing when you got, because we haven't really done the coding yet.
Yeah, we're using the app Marvel. That's the thing. That's why I say you guys have to do your Marvel. Is the Marvel they're testing.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
But yeah, I thought Marvel was just the designs. I don't.
Yeah, so you can test.
Yeah, Go ahead, Jessica.
Yes, actually, that's a good point. You can test a prototype. So, for example, before this session, so this week I've been looking at your prototype. I've been looking at it, and playing on the screens. And I think that's the thing is, on Marvel, you can already go around. You can already orient yourself, and that's what most companies in the world do. They don't actually build the app until they're 100% sure. So a lot of time you're only testing prototypes because it's easier to make changes. So for example, if looking at the prototype there, you see people commenting on the pictures, or people, I don't know, saying, oh, the font is hard to read. You quickly change the font. That's not a problem. Like whatever it is that people comment on, you can learn from that. But also if one person tells you, I think the font should be pink, I don't know, whatever, like someone says one thing, it doesn't mean you should do it just because one person said it. So it's also about really listening to everyone's opinion. And if you see that, all of the people said the same thing, then yeah, maybe there's something that you should look into. But if it's only one person, in that case, it's for you to determine whether that person has made a great comment, or if you can just think, okay, not everyone's going to have the same, expectations. So, you can't please everyone. That's also a reality.
Is that okay, Siobhan? So we are testing. So that's why I say everybody complete your Marvel app. I've been emphasizing that because that's what you're testing first. If you look at the PowerPoint I gave to you guys, you have the Marvel app screen there. Then you now see the comment from what changes have you made based on the testing before we now go ahead and now build it, start coding. Does that make sense, Siobhan?
So they're literally just looking at the individual screens. There's no sort of trying to put in buttons to click to go here or anything like that yet. They're literally just looking at individual screens and saying, I like
No,
that
no. So
screen.
that means you have not done yours well then, because you can navigate through Marvel Lab. Do you understand? You can click and move and do all sorts in Marvel Lab.
Yeah, you can.
Jessica, you're not the one.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
No, not just Jessica. We have another Jessica.
Oh.
Jessica is in the team. Is in. If we could even share Laura's app. Laura's app is moving. You can click around. Yeah, you can see that. Click on it. If you can click, you see that you can see that. You can click on it, even though she's still working on it. You can click, go to the back. You can move around some of it. Do you know what I mean? If you start from the home page, you can see that you can move around. So she's actually still working on that, but you can see that. So you have to go to your Marvel app, has to be movable, not just one screen. You use the hotspot to navigate around the screen. You see that?
Okay.
So, does that make sense, Siobhan? So that means you haven't done yours. You have work to do then. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. So so now, in fact, I don't know what to say. Look at all the comments. Thank you so much, Jessica. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we want to open the floor to the next special guest for today, Cynthia from Canada. Woo!
Thank you so much, Jessica. I learned so much because I am not the technical side of things. I've always been on the support and customer service and marketing and selling things kind of side. So it's really cool to kind of peel those layers back and see how you guys do that side of things. Today, I'm going to talk more about something you're going to do in the future, because I'm assuming you're not there yet if you're still building, but pitching, you're creating your pitch video and basically getting, convincing the judges why your app is, and I've got a bad camera. So I'll warn you now, I'm going to get some really ugly faces going on here today. There we go. And getting the judges excited about your idea and showing them why your app is the best or amazing and why it should move forward. But before I do that, can we get some cameras turned on? I see a few amazing brave souls who have their cameras on, but I'm hoping for a few more just for this next section, because I want to play a bit of a game. And yeah, it's really lame because this is what like grown-ups do and make teenagers do when they don't want to. For some context, I do have a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old who think I am the least cool mom in the entire world. So I will own that before we get started. But just because I want to kind of gauge some of our experience here. Oh, I got one extra camera. If I can just get a few more, I'm going to start begging. You know what? I'm going to be really vulnerable. I'm going to show you where I am right now. I'm actually in my bed, and I'll show you. I've got my dog on my lap, and I'm wearing my pajamas. So I guarantee, I bet you look beautiful with your camera on. So, we're going to play Never Have I Ever. Now, we're not going to play the Never Have I Ever that you play with your friends, that you never ever want your parents to hear some of these questions and answers. This is more specifically about pitching your video, but it's a nice, easy format because most people have played it. If you haven't played Never Have You Ever, I'm going to say a statement. And if you have done it, you're going to put your hand up. Or sorry, if you agree with it, you're going to put your hand up. So for example, I'm going to say, never have I ever, oh no, I have posted a video on TikTok. I did it this week, but I'm going to lie. Never have I ever posted a video on TikTok, and I'm going to raise my hand. And then if you have done it, you're going to keep your hand down. So yes, my daughter told me that I wasn't allowed to put a video on TikTok. So I made an account and I posted a video just to say to her, you're not the boss of me. Okay, so another one, you can put your hands down now. So another one, I'm going to put my hand up for everything, but I've done a lot of these things. I swear to God, I am like qualified to do this with you. Never have I ever watched a video before. Right? Everybody's watched a video. We've all seen videos on the internet, or we've watched TV. If you've never seen a video. So if you've never seen a video, put your hand up. Evelyn, you're lying. You've seen lots of videos. Right. Okay. Never have I ever filmed myself. I have never taken a video of myself with a phone. I've never taken a video of myself. That's what I thought. My big joke was that, again, you guys have probably taken more videos of yourselves than I have ever taken of myself. Never have I ever made a video to tell something to someone really specifically. I wanted to get a message across. Okay, good. Never have I ever built a pitch video to try and sell something. Excellent. So we got a few folks who've never done a pitch video. That's really good. So hopefully I've got some new stuff to share with you. I got some more faces on cameras. It's exciting. Okay. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through kind of the like boring blah, blah, blah. These are the things you need to know. And then we're going to have another conversation. So let me just share my screen. And I tell you, at 9:47 on a Saturday morning, this much energy is really hard to build. So I'm working really hard to make this happen for you. Okay. Share screen. And again, my children probably somewhere, if they're awake, they're probably both asleep going, oh my God, Mom, why are you even doing any of this? Okay. So recording your pitch. We're going to skip through our first few. We played our game already. Never have I ever. Okay. So my name is Cynthia. I've worked in all kinds of industries from hospitality to retail to managing tech teams and pretty much everywhere. I've been in the workforce for 30 years this year, but I was like a baby, I swear. At Shopify, I work to support organizations who are empowering small to medium businesses to launch and grow. So I basically work with groups to help their businesses that they work with grow and get online, especially in all this COVID stuff. So basically, I spend a lot of time talking to people and hosting virtual events. I live on Zoom. In my spare time, I'm a lame mom of teens whose sole mission is to embarrass my children whenever possible. And I'm sure at some point my dog Rory is going to make an appearance because if anyone gets up and move around, she's going to jump up and start barking, and she keeps things very exciting over here. Okay, so that's me in a nutshell. So from what I understand, you guys are currently kind of designing your app, getting ready to build, but eventually you're going to need to sell this to someone. So what I'm going to talk about specifically is how to get some good pitch footage, things you want to keep in mind to put in your video. And I think it's kind of good to kind of have this conversation at the beginning as well too, because you can kind of have that in mind as you're designing things and thinking things through. How will this sell? How will this look when I'm trying to show someone how cool my app is? So like any assignment you have in school, or if you're at work and you've got some criteria, you want to take a look at what the specific criteria are that the audience, the judges, the teacher, the boss is expecting to see. So this is the rubric that came right from the Technovation website. And this 5-point description, because you want 5 points in each section, describes what it is that's going to make your pitch video stand out. So you want to make sure that your pitch conveys urgency of the problem and effectiveness of the solution. And this is where I really kind of get into like this passion and this excitement and showing this enthusiasm. And authenticity as well too. So authenticity is where you're just really being honest and being really clear and forthright in what you're saying about it. And that's where I think you can really shine, because you're all unique individuals, you're unique teams with unique goals, unique views, unique dreams, and you're all solving your own unique problem that I'm assuming you've got some passion and excitement about. Otherwise, you wouldn't have chosen it. It would have been something else. A creative video, and we're going to talk about a few ways to be creative, both things that involve some technical skill and just some ways that you can utilize yourself to be creative. And you want to keep your viewer engaged throughout the pitch. How many Zoom videos have you guys been watching these days? Like bazillions? And I watch them, and literally it's because I work in my bed. I'm like, ugh. So you want to find some ways to keep people engaged the entire time. So we're going to talk about a few ways you can do that as well. And of course, under growth and perseverance, really, you can share your journey of building your app. You could be taking some videos already now of like your meetings and getting frustrated and having arguments, because that happens in groups usually. But also how you overcame that kind of disagreement and how you overcame those challenges in your journey. That's another really great way to show in your video, make it interesting and show how you guys have grown, because there's no question you don't enter a competition like this and leave it being the same person. You've learned something, you've grown, you've adapted and become someone different after. So those are some things that you can kind of make sure you include in your video to show what's come out of all of what you've done. So let me So in your pitch videos, there are 3 components. Of course, it starts with you, and it's really important to recognize that. We want to see all those great minds and faces behind these ideas. You guys are the stars of your own ideas, and the most important thing is to make sure you shine. Some of us are super, super shy. I also think the older we get, the more shy we are about being on camera or about showing our faces. But again, you are what's going to sell your video. You are what's going to sell your app, because it's your passion and your excitement that makes this really special. Then there's B-roll footage. Has anyone heard of B-roll? Yeah, it's basically, so hey, Laura, do you want to tell us what B-roll is?
Yeah, it's like the extra footage any stock footage you insert into like your video. Yeah.
Yeah, and does anyone know why you would use B-roll? Sometimes it gives you a little bit of context around what is happening. So say, for example, you created an app. My daughter's on the autism spectrum, and you created an app that helps a child on the autism spectrum recognize emotions in their faces. Well, I could show some B-roll of my daughter having an argument with my son, or my daughter laughing while everyone else is crying, these kinds of things, because she doesn't understand the emotion. So B-roll kind of gives some context and some background, and you can kind of infer some things from your B-roll. It also keeps it kind of interesting, because it would be kind of boring to just look at the app the entire time, or as gorgeous and wonderful as your faces are, it can be boring to just sit there and watch someone blah, 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 blah the whole time. So it kind of creates some interest in your video as well. And then, of course, you're recording. So the proof is in your pudding, recording the actual work, showing that your app is real, showing it in action. It also helps build your credibility to not only say, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Or imagine a world where you can do this. You could start with that, but then you can go, boom, here it is. It is real. So actually showing the recording of what your app can do, of course, is going to be important to being a great pitch. So I love this one only because I love the Gilmore Girls show so much. So thinking about what makes a good or a bad recording. What about this? If you can imagine her saying, I get it. What could we improve about this video so that people could actually understand what's going on with Lorelai? That's a pretty loaded question, because I'll give you a little bit of answers here to help you out. There's a lot happening in the background, so it's very distracting. So even I actually didn't even realize it was Lorelai when I first watched this video, because I saw all the people coming and going. I saw the town hall. There was just so much happening. It was distracting and taking away from Lorelai. Now she was standing and it was just her, and there was nothing or a very neutral background behind her. I'd be like, oh, look, it's Lorelai. So a lot easier to recognize. So when you're doing your recording, you want to make sure that you have somewhat a neutral background behind you. Even mine isn't so great, because my pendant here is totally taking away from my face, because it's like, oh, look, there's something flying into her head. But a blank neutral background is really, really important. Now, one thing that she's done right is that she's in natural light. And in my bedroom where I work from, I don't have a lot of natural light. It's usually really dark and kind of shadowy like this. So because I don't have access to natural light, I actually brought in a true light to make my face kind of stand out more. You obviously don't have to buy special equipment to make this happen. You can do your recording outside. You can do your recording near a window so that you're getting that really nice natural light on your face. I laugh because my 16-year-old, I was looking at her TikTok the other day, and she's actually really good at finding the natural light to record her videos. Not that I always like what she says in them, because one of them is like, my parents are crazy and this is why. But the lighting that she does is she's got a really great eye for light. Also super important, and that's where the kind of saying at the bottom is here, where it says, make sure your audio is clear. You want to be heard. You don't want to be too far away from the video when you're actually recording it. There's a few ways that you can ensure that you're nice and clear. The most challenging part is if you're using like your microphone on your computer and you're filming from far away, because it won't pick it up the same way. You can use, if you've got some wireless headphones, like an AirPod type thing that has a mic in it, That would help because you'll be able to hear yourself nice and clear. I happen to use an external microphone again because this is my job, so I use that. But you want to make sure that your audio is clear. And if your audio isn't clear because you don't have all this fancy equipment, that's okay too. You can also record your audio when you're closer to your computer and put it on top of your video. So that's an option as well too. That's called dubbing. Just to make sure that your audio is nice and clear. And the worst case scenario is in some areas where maybe when you're seeing your face, you can't hear you. You can choose to sub in something else and do a voiceover for that B-roll or something along those ways. So there's a few ways you can work, but you want to make sure that your audio is nice and clear. Also, make sure you're not chewing gum. Don't have things in your hand. I mean, I'm big. I've got all these distractions around me. Actually, having my dog on my lap is a great distraction for me because if I need to fiddle, I just pet her and you can't tell that I'm doing it. But make sure if you're doing something like that, that you can't see it on screen. You want to make sure that the audience can just see get your message across without any distractions all around. Make sure you're looking at the camera. So what you can't see about my setup, but I almost should like take a photo so you can see. I have my slideshow on a monitor over here, but I'm not looking at it. I have my notes on my laptop right directly below my webcam. So even when I'm reading, I'm still looking at you guys. And that's very intentional because you want to make eye contact with the audience. And I find, honestly, talking to a camera, like if I talk to my camera, I'd be talking right here, is super awkward. But by putting your faces up under my camera and putting my notes up under my camera, I'm looking at the camera and I'm speaking to you. But it's less awkward because I'm reading from my script or I'm looking at your faces as I'm talking. So positioning your notes, whether you're using cue cards, I've actually I've used a window marker or a dry erase marker, and I've written my notes on the window so that I've got that light that I'm facing where my camera is, and I can actually see it behind me. So that's another kind of trick that I've used when I've done, I had to do a record a bio once. So I sat in front of my window. I had 3 panes on my window, and on the right-hand pane, I wrote all the notes that I wanted to make sure that I hit. So it's inexpensive. It's not fancy, but it works. So make sure, dress for success. That's an important piece as well too. And I actually have a really great example, but I didn't want to call out my colleague specifically because he recorded some videos and he had like the loudest, brightest design shirt I have ever seen in my life. And all I could think when I was watching his video was, damn, that's a really loud shirt. So you want to make sure that whatever you're wearing isn't distracting as well. And if you're presenting with your partner together, make sure that you're coordinating your colors. Like they don't have to be matchy, although I have seen some teams in the competition to wear matching shirts, which is cool. But wear something plain. Don't wear white because it tends to blend into your backgrounds a lot. So then it's like you look like you're just a head on top. Wear a little bit of color is good, but make sure that it's kind of coordinating with your friends so it's not distracting from the camera. I wouldn't say like this woman's got a lovely suit on, good for her. I have not worn a suit to the office in about 8 years now. But just make sure that you're comfortable, but still neat looking. Okay, landscape mode. This is how I go. If you're recording for TikTok, you want to do it portrait. Where's my phone? If you're recording for TikTok, you want to do it this way. Everywhere else, you want to do it this way. It allows you to integrate other material better. Most of your B-roll that you're going to find out there, if you're using stock footage, is going to be landscape. And of course, it fills the screen much better. You want to maintain your focus. So again, keep an eye on your camera. It's nice to have someone on the other end if you can, or film it in selfie mode so you can actually see, so that if things go out of focus or something all of a sudden looks wacky, you can catch it. I'm going to show you some really cool tripod hacks in a second, because ideally to be trying to record your video like this with your camera is pretty awkward. So I'll show you some ways how you can, because not everyone has a fancy tripod you can use. I have used everything from like boxes piled up on my table, and I've had books in behind and stuff, but I found a few pretty cool tripod hacks we'll show you. And again, make sure you've got some great lighting. Do you have any questions so far? I know I'm like blowing a lot. And again, don't be afraid to throw them in the chat, and I'll keep an eye once in a while to see if there's any.
And Emily has a question.
I just saw, like, oh, look, there's 9 in the chat. I should look at this. Oh, first of all, the show is called Gilmore Girls, and it's really, really good. It's a great story of a mom and a teenager. Both the kids like it because it's they relate to the daughter, and the moms like it because they relate to the mom. Cube camera is a great idea. Mine is similar. Mine is a Logitech, and it's just nice because it's got a crisper kind of view than my camera on my web on my laptop does. That's really cool. Okay. Let's look at some of those tripod hacks. So again, if we were all in an ideal world where money was no object and access to equipment was no object, we'd have some fancy tripods. But these are kind of some fun ways to hold your camera up. Things with binder clips. I love the one that actually has the adapter to plug into the wall, because most people, when they get their phone, get one of those square adapters. The cutting out the coffee cup. The other one looks like they've cut out like a concert ticket, but some sort of like harder kind of cardstock material. And I love that they put a line through the one that's showing the vertical camera instead of the horizontal, the portrait instead of the landscape. So these are a few ideas to help you set up your phone as a tripod. There we go. So we got her back again. Multiple takes is also a really important. I don't know if you've ever watched a TV show or a movie where they're showing you how they're filming a show, and they go take 25, take 30, and they say, let's do it again. Let's do it again. And the reason for those multiple takes is it gives you more footage to work with. Sometimes the audio could be a little bit louder, the angles adjusted a little bit. You also have options when you're editing as well too. You can have some video, this is a way to create interest. You can have some video of someone talking this way, and then you may cut to like a profile of filming them on the profile, and that just adds interest when you're watching a film. There's a really interesting stat, and it's somewhere around 6 seconds. So if you're watching a TV show or you're watching a movie, count to 6 when they've got someone on screen. And a lot of times they actually change the angle or they change the shot every 6 seconds. And that I thought, I was like, no way, that I could just imagine like flashes all over the place, but it's actually pretty true. So having multiple takes and filming multiple angles just gives you more footage to work with when you go down and do your editing. B-roll. Again, you can tell B-roll footage from your pitch footage because, you know, just by looking at it, the person talking in the video is not actually in the footage. So you'll hear someone talking about, it was a busy day in New York. Rain was coming down and there were a lot of lights flashing everywhere. More importantly, they're not facing the camera because the audience is asked to pay attention to the scene. And almost the stuff that they're hearing is less important because the scene is kind of giving the context around what they're saying. So if this was what I used for my B-roll footage, anyone want to guess what I was talking about? So if you saw this B-roll, what could you infer I was talking about?
Is it rainy day?
Rainy day, absolutely. Go ahead, Alexia. Oh, she's frozen. You want to maybe try typing that one in the chat, Alexia, because you're breaking up. I'm gonna go take a look in the chat.
Jessica said urban life, busy city.
Busy city, absolutely. Urban life, yes.
In terms of something that's like trying to solve a problem, it would maybe be like a busy city, like overcrowding and pollution or something like that.
Excellent. These are all really great. And I think they're all bang on. If we go to the next slide, you know, talking about traffic, crowds, risks for contamination. Like this is almost like a COVID nightmare. I'm watching at this, all these people coming and going around each other. I find even now if I'm watching a TV show and it's like a crowded party, I'm like, oh my gosh, risks. And of course, how prominent ads are. Like if you look, especially, I mean, Times Square in New York is like the epitome of where all ads go to flash. We could also talk about, you know, just the fact of ad exposure on any given day. The voiceover might be on any given day, an ad on a single major city intersection will receive over 2 million views. You know, or if we're talking about traffic, the voiceover might be, Over the past 5 years, we've seen an exponential growth in the population density in major cities. You know, and this just kind of the B-roll gives some context around what the messaging is. All that said, let's talk a little bit about recording your video. Oh, I want to take a look. I've got some more. It's so hard because I can't see it when I'm presenting. Too much hazards. And yes, it is New York. I'm glad that Emma caught that. And it's funny, I've been to Town Square once, and Town Square, Frank. I've been to Times Square once, and it is as loud and crazy and busy as it looks on TV. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of some of the mechanics around recording your video. And this is where I said, ultimately, I suspect that you folks are going to be super resourceful, and that this is going to be the easy part as far as just capturing all the stuff for you, because when it comes to technology and electronics, I will say that my teens often catch on to it faster than I do. But we're going to go through a few kind of tools that you can use. So these are the points that Technovation says are important for you to make sure you keep in mind when you're creating your video. Your video can be 3 to 5 minutes long. So I would say aim for 4 minutes. That way, if you run a little bit over or you run a little under, you're still within that time frame. All the members of your team should be shown and speak at some point during the video. You may find that someone will be more comfortable. They may take more of like the lead, but it's important that all of you appear on camera and all of you speak so you can have your time to shine. The video must be uploaded as unlisted or publicly viewable to YouTube or Vimeo. Otherwise, we can't guarantee that videos without those credentials will be judged. You need to have English and/or English subtitles must be included. One of the tools I'm going to show you actually does automatic transcription, and the subtitles that it creates are amazing and it's free. So that's a tool I'll share with you. Protect yours and others' privacy. Don't show identifying names, numbers, or accounts. And you need to have the consent of everyone you show in your video. So it's important to have, you can either ask the question online when you're recording the video or have them fill out a form that says, I give consent, but make sure that everyone who's included has given you consent to be on video. The same way that Evelyn asked before she recorded us today. Just want to make sure it's cool with everyone if I record this and we gave our verbal consent. And lastly, when you're using images from other sources, whether you're using stock footage or you're citing quotes from a website, to make sure you're citing all of that information as well so that you're giving credit where credit is due. Video editing resources. There are different techniques you can use to create your pitch video. Video editing can take a very long time. I'm not going to lie. Give yourself a lot of time for the actual video editing because it is the most time-consuming version of creating a video. And it takes a lot of edits until you get to your final product. It will help if you give yourself lots of time. You'll want to revisit it and revise it until you're satisfied with the final product. And again, remember that pitch video is one of the most important messages that your judges are going to take from your project. No matter how great your project is, and I'm convinced that all of you will have fantastic apps and projects that you've created, you need to be able to communicate that, and you communicate it through your pitch video. So the resources that I've got on screen now, all of our computers have some sort of built-in movie maker. I use iMovie a lot on my Mac. I use iMovie on my iPad. I use it on my phone. We were a bit of an Apple house here, so that's one that we're really familiar with. Windows has a built-in one called Movie Maker, and they have their Photos app. There's a free app out there that you can download called Video app. And then the editor that I was talking about is called Descript. So what I like about Descript is once your video is done, once it's all edited, like you can do some minor editing in there, but other tools like iMovie are much more powerful. But you can sign up for a Descript account and you can load in your video and then you can have it create a transcript for you. And then you can edit the transcript right there. So you can make sure that your subtitles are actually correct. Because if you mumbled a word or if you, sometimes it doesn't recognize some names and it'll say something really weird for your name. So you have the opportunity to edit your subtitles in Descript as well. And that accessibility thing is something that's kind of dear to my heart because I am hearing impaired and I use closed captions all the time when I watch videos. So sometimes we think about these things and we think, well, who really uses this stuff? And to meet me, you'd never know that I need closed captioning to watch videos. So it's important to keep that in mind. For people who are sight impaired, they can hear your descriptions. So make sure your descriptions are really vibrant and clear. you know, here's our app. It has a red background with white lettering, and this is the title. And so when you're walking people through your walkthrough, make sure you're describing it as you go through. And I'll talk about that again in a little bit. For audio recording, Mac has built-in QuickTime. Windows have a built-in sound recorder. Our phones all have some sort of a voice memo or a voice recording as well in them. And that way you can record your all of your kind of voiceovers for some of your B-roll. Of course, uploading. I do have a couple links here that I can share. I suspect Evelyn might already have them, but how to upload on YouTube and how to upload on Vimeo so that you're doing it in the correct format. Okay, screenshots and screen recordings. Of course, this is again where the magic happens, where you're going to show off what's happening in your app. So again, make sure that you're protecting privacy, that you don't have any screens that are showing real people's information. Make your actions really obvious. I do like that this particular screen recording has the little round dot that shows where they're kind of clicking at the time. And make sure you narrate. I've seen a couple of videos where they showed the app, but they weren't talking about what they were doing, and I just couldn't understand where they were going and why they were doing what they were doing. Yep, what else do I want to say? Yeah, so if they can't see what you've clicked and it's not obvious where to look, make sure you're describing it. And you can play around with zooming and editing, zooming and stuff during editing. So when you're actually doing recording your video, make sure that you're recording all of the screen or as much as you can, because you can always crop it in your post editing. Same thing as well too. If you're filming it and you're like, oh, it feels like this is really too long, that's not a problem. Film too much, record too much, because you can cut it down in editing as well. And how to do a screen recording. So I have an iPhone, so hopefully I don't have any crazy mess. Oh, you know what? I can do it just from here. So if you're looking at my iPhone, I just slide up, and it's a lot easier to do when it's facing me. So I slide up, and there's a little, my record button is down here. I just tap that recording button, and it gives me a 3-second warning, and then I can start moving on my app and starts recording on my phone. So that's a quick down and dirty, easy way to do it. And then each of our computers, again, has something built in. I've got QuickTime on my iMac, and your Windows always has the option to record as well. Okay, this is the fun part. Let's talk wow factor. How are you going to set yourself? This is the selling part. How are you going to set yourself apart from other folks who are entering their videos? So I'm going to show an example of a video, and I'm not 100% sure that I shared my volume correctly, so I might unshare and reshare to make sure you're going to be able to hear the video okay. Give me 1 second. Unshare, share screen, optimize for video clip. Everyone go back into that one. There we go. So this is an example of a Salesforce app demo.
With the new Salesforce mobile app, your entire business is instantly mobile, conversational, and smart so that you can truly run your business anywhere. When your team is on the road and away from their computer, they can start the day with a daily overview dashboard. And they can now visualize performance across the organization with Einstein Analytics and smart dashboards built in. So when your team arrives on site, they have access to all their customers' insights, including next steps they need to take for the opportunity. Sales reps can even talk to Einstein Voice Assistant and turn voice commands into immediate changes to contact and opportunity information, instantly creating tasks so the team can respond to the customer fast. Employees can also access every custom-built app so the entire workforce is more productive, like a self-service concierge app to help them get the resources they need faster. And admins can build entirely custom mobile apps that are unique to every business function using low-code tools, like adding quoting features or map integration. So your team can arrive safely, complete their work, and celebrate their wins. Download the Salesforce mobile app in the App Store or Google Play Store to get started and see how you can run your entire business from anywhere. Blaze your trail with Salesforce. With the new Salesforce mobile app, your entire business is instantly mobile, conversational.
Yeah, we hear you. Okay. Go back to the full screen. So tell me about Wow Factor. What did you like about that video? What caught your eye? I gotta open up my chat so I can see you again.
I guess the use of different footage in the B-rolls, I feel like were really good, and it played a role in storytelling as well. And I also like the narration and the tone of the narrator's voice. So yeah.
Excellent. Those are all really great. Thanks, Laura. Alexia, are you able to type into the chat because we can't hear you, love?
I way they put a phone picture and
Oh, I see. Team Twin Stars. Team Twin Stars says he spoke clearly and loudly. Yeah, and I think that's an example when it comes to that of someone who did recording, like overdubbing recording, right? So they was nice and clear. He spoke slowly as well too. There's like slowly and fast is how I call it. He had to get through his material, but he took pauses where he needed to take pauses. And I'm someone who talks really, really fast. So when I do presentations like this, I actually find those breaks. And I pay attention when I write my scripting to a comma. If I've got a comma there, it's like, oh, Cynthia, pause, and then keep going. So keeping that in mind as well, too, loud and clear. I'm theater trained, so I did theater in university. Spent a lot of time on stage, so projecting my voice is very important. Make sure that you can hear. I love that the narration made it very relatable, and you're able to kind of understand what they're doing.
Yeah, there were very friendly vibes there, weren't there, and sort of fun.
I agree. And think about that as well, too, right? This is where I talk about that enthusiasm, like show that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, some of the social problems we're solving are very, very real. I do a lot of work with mental health, and some of the things around mental health can be kind of scary and have very like somber kind of tones. But it's important that even if it's something serious you're talking about, you're still feeling that passion as you're talking about it, and trying to convey the like gravity of the situation. And so do you see what I did there? I slowed down and I started punching my words a little bit more. That's what helps you to really kind of get that message across as well. And I love this. What I liked is the way they put up the phones and made it type without fingers. And also I think that's definitely from editing for sure. And that's exactly it, Alexia. One thing I liked is that you noticed when someone was doing something and they went like this, the narrator talked about what they might be doing and showed what they might be seeing on their screen. And I thought that was a really cool way to kind of show it as well too, so that you can see what they're doing and almost feel like you're watching them doing it live, which is super cool. Also notice
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So obviously you have the mobile phone at the middle of the whole thing. So that would have been an editing thing. So is that correct? That's just a mobile phone picture. Well, the screen is
that
just
to me looks like a mobile phone picture. Yes, I agree. I suspect they've probably put the animation on it. Again, welcome to Salesforce with all the money and resources they have. Mm-hmm. I would say to keep it easy for you guys, you can still film it. Either film your app doing its thing, do a screen recording is probably the best way to do it, because with a screen recording, you're going to get that look and feel. You may not have it skinned on a phone, or if you can, hey, amazing. But at least having that screen recording so that you can show what's happening on the screen at the same time is still effective. Okay. They had some animations in there as well too, where you saw the kind of dude flying in at one point, and there was a little dude, the little moose or something, was like, yay, go team. Those just keep things fun and again draw attention to things. There are some animation options. Actually, I'm just going to go to my next slide. No, I don't.
With the new Salesforce mobile app, your entire business is instantly mobile, conversational, and smart, so that you can truly run your business anywhere.
There we go. So there are some free animation options out there as well. You'll see that a lot of videos, I watch a lot of business videos and business training on YouTube. A lot of them have cool little animations, and there's no way every company has a full animation team. They use tools like Powtoon is an example, and you can create an animation free there where you can take a background, you can add people, you can add things, you can actually create a little animation if you'd like of a scenario. Another thing I've seen is where people, similar to what we saw in the Salesforce one, where people act out kind of a scenario of, in this situation, where would this app come into play? So again, I talked about my daughter with being on the spectrum and how we could potentially have her not understanding show almost like a little skit, like if you create a little play. If someone on your team is very creative, write a song, write a rap, write a slam poem about your app or about your, I know this is lame, I know moms are here. Emily Rose, it is a little bit more crisp. Yes, I can see, love. So using your creativity to do something a little bit different that will stand out. If one of you can sing, have at it, those kinds of things. But again, that enthusiasm and the you, that's where you're really bringing the wow, is to find a way to convey your passion. It's really easy to get nervous when you're reading your script as well too. So more practice, more doing it over and over again until it feels natural, and then you can actually put more of you in it. Okay. Any other ideas on how to add the wow?
Can you repeat the question?
Are there any more ideas on how you can kind of add the wow or something creative to your video that we haven't kind of talked about? Jokes are great. I use a lot of humor when I present. That's why I keep joking about my kids thinking I'm lame and everything else, because it's it's true, and B, it makes people feel comfortable. Music is a great option. There's a lot of royalty-free music available out there. In the Powtoon video, you do have access to some images and to some music that is royalty free. So you can definitely add that. You notice there was a fun kind of a little background music to the one that was from Salesforce. So again, I think relatable is come across a couple of times. And I think that's a really important thing as well. You want the judges to be able to relate, even if they don't maybe have their own personal context to the problem you're trying to solve. If you can tell a story and get them excited about that story or invested in that story, maybe you're choosing to do something for diabetes because you have a family member who struggles with diabetes. Again, in my family, we talk a lot about mental health. So if you're doing something to do with mental health, you could tell a quick story about someone who's struggling with that mental health issue. You could potentially feature them talking about the problem that you're trying to solve. You can feature an expert on the problem that you're trying to solve, and a small excerpt of a video of talking to them to add a little bit of credibility. The ideas are endless. And what I love about working with young people is that you guys have this ability to think outside the box. As we get older, our boxes I call it our boxes get bigger and the outside doesn't really come in so much. But when you're younger, your box is a lot smaller. So you're willing to try all these kind of cool and different things. And again, my kids amaze me every day in some of the stuff they come up with. But these are just a few ideas, hopefully to get you started.
Yeah.
And we are almost done. You'll be happy to hear. So there is an activity that comes along with this. I don't think you guys are at the stage to do it now, but again, when Evelyn shares these materials later, you can take advantage of doing this activity. But it's basically starting to film some videos, screen recording your app in action when you're ready, making a sample voice recording. These are some things that you can kind of practice as well now too. Getting comfortable with filming yourself. Again, as you guys are filming each other or yourselves during this process, start taking the videos now. Start playing with video editing software. It does take a bit to get the hang of it. So that's definitely really valuable. And heck, it'll make your TikTok and your Snapchat videos way cooler anyways. Think about your video downloading tool, whether you're going to use Vimeo or you're going to use YouTube. Take a look at some B-roll footage. We have Shopify provides royalty-free images, and we have a little bit of video on it on burst.shopify.com. So that's BURST.shopify.com. Can't screen record on my tablet. Is there an app you recommend? Let me know what kind of tablet you have, and I'll take a look and see if I can find an option for you. And of course, make sure you're getting your consent for anyone that you're filming or anything else beyond yourself and your own copyrighted material. Okay, so we're not going to worry about reflection right now because you haven't actually done anything. But the last part that I just wanted to share some resources. And again, I'm going to send my slide deck to Evelyn so she can share all of these links with you. Because there are so many different techniques, and the best way to create a pitch video that gets you excited sometimes is also to look at a few videos that are out there and look at a few examples and pick out the things you like from each of them. TED Talks are amazing. They bring in experts from all over the world to talk about things that they are very good at. So we've got a TED Talk for 10 tips for editing your video. I watched the Indiegogo one. I watched the Bitpod one. And of course, Lifehacker has a really great explanation on how you can edit as well too. And of course, all of your tools. iMovie has help videos and tutorials. They all have kind of options to help you make things greater. And the cool thing is that, again, the sky's the limit, right? Google's your best friend in pretty much anything you ever do. I'm not going to lie. And anytime I need to do something new at work, it's like, okay, let me Google that immediately is my first thing. And that's, you can find so many resources that way, as I'm sure you've already figured out. And this is where I'm going to go back when I was your age. We didn't have Google to tell us these things. We had to figure them out ourselves. So it's a very important resource that you're very lucky to have. So finally, I always like to leave folks with a quote. And I think this is super important for you to think about, especially when it comes to showcasing yourself. Your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after an experience with you becomes your trademark. And I think that's really important to think about. The biggest lasting impression you're going to leave is you and your passion and your excitement and your interest. So make sure that you're not shy to share you, because as corny as it sounds, there really is only one you, and that's what makes you unique. So show you, and that's going to make a big difference in your video in the long run. So thank you for letting me come and talk. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the floor is yours, girls.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Ask all the questions.
Very good.
Ask all the questions. Thank you so much.
No, Rory's came to say hello.
Maybe I should start up before the girl starts up. Is there any question out there yet? Okay, so there was one part of your presentation, which of course is one of Technovation requirements, that the girls would have to kind of take clips of them doing the work together, arguing or whatever. But now we are all working in isolation. we can't see ourselves. I've not met most of these girls, funny enough, because, it's all videos and all that. So how do we capture that?
So when you guys are working together, are you working in Zoom meetings like this?
Yeah, we're working. Well, WhatsApp and Zoom. So
yeah.
WhatsApp, we don't see each other, only text. Then Zoom, Zoom.
So things like recording your meetings and being able to, that way you're actually capturing what is happening while you're doing it. When I'm seeing Team Twin Stars are in the same room, that makes it a lot easier for them because they can record each other. Yeah. Text, when you're sending texts back and forth, you can screenshot a text. Are you crazy? Why would you want to do that? Oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. Look, we weren't getting along in this moment, but then we did this to solve the problem, right? The cool thing about this frustrating time of not being able to be together is that everything we are doing is electronic and we have the opportunity to capture it. So don't be afraid to capture it because we have it there. We record a lot of our meetings at Shopify, not because we feel a need to, show everyone how we fight, because we don't fight too much, but it's more about being able to share with other people after. This is what happened. This is what didn't happen. Yeah, I love that. Google's pretty recent. I don't think anyone over the age of 25 grew up with Google. Yeah, and I'm much older than 25. So Google came out I was probably 25 when Google came out.
I can imagine. I can assure you, some teams will have loads of text to record because they're always arguing. Yeah, that's a good idea, and it's just to show. Very good idea. I doubt if other teams outside of here will do that, but we're gonna do that.
You know what, Natanya, I'm gonna help you because I'm not quite 50 yet, but I am 45, so I'm probably the age of a lot of your moms. So,
fair enough.
Siobhan, you have your hand up. Did you want to ask a question, hun?
Sorry, no.
Okay.
Oh, okay, no problem.
So that's a very good tip you gave us then, because I've been thinking, like, how do we capture that that interaction that we've had? So maybe we'll just take some of the clips, them talking without the voices, but it will be part of the video and some text. And
you could even share that, like, have a screenshot on your video and have you guys like read it out. So it's, let's just say I'm going to pick on the two top people on my screen. So Siobhan and Emily Rose. And so let's say those two ladies are texting and you have Siobhan saying, why would you do that? And she could actually narrate it over the image of the, why would you do that? And Emily Rose like, well, I thought it would be this way. And Siobhan's like, no, well, I thought it would be this way. And you can say, well, we worked this out by this. So you can actually, like, it's almost like bringing your text to life in your video as well too. Oh, Natanya, you're my new favorite person in the whole world. Can you come and live with me, please? She thought I was 30. I love her right now. I'm gonna have a smile on my face for the rest of the day. That made me feel so good. My daughter's gonna laugh at you really hard when she wakes up later. And then the other thing around that is video blogs. Like if you think about, I don't know if you've ever watched like reality TV shows like Big Brother or The Bachelor, I don't watch any of that because it makes me crazy, but RuPaul's Drag Race, and they have like the confessions where they record themselves and how they're feeling and what they're thinking in that moment. That is something that you can do as well too. You don't necessarily have to share them all with your team because sometimes you just need to get some stuff out that's really frustrating. But there's opportunity then to kind of share that later and saying, this is how we were feeling in this moment, or this is what we thought. Or when you're celebrating that something that works, like how cool is it? Oh my God, it's working. Record that, record your emotions when you've got, oh my God, we finally got this feature to work. This is how I feel. That's the kind of stuff that you can share in your journey that gets people excited too.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, loads of information. Any questions, girls? Any question? I can't wait to get your notes now so I can share with the girls. Very, very helpful. Thank you so much. Dress for success. Now, One question I was going to ask, because I find that difficult as well to wear the right color when you're, videoing or recording. So what would you suggest? Would it be flowery stuff or just plain stuff? What would you suggest?
Stick with plain. I am going to share that I'm looking at all these beautiful dark skin faces that I'm jealous because you guys can wear some really beautiful colors like yellow and orange and bright things, which are totally okay. Myself, I can't. I have to stick to like a soft blue or like my soft green. I have to stick to more pastel, softer colors, but you guys can do bright, and that's going to actually get some excitement around your videos as well too. As long as it's coordinating, as long as, I wouldn't want to see someone with like a pastel pink next to like a bright red. It would like hurt your eyes on the screen. You can also look at, there are all kinds of websites that are like, color patterns, color families that will help you kind of choose colors around that as well too. Black is pretty safe. It's not very exciting to watch, but it is a safe one. But as long as, also make sure you're wearing a color that you feel good in, right? Like, because if you feel good, it's going to translate on screen that you're feeling good. So like I keep picking on the twin stars because they happen to be the two folks in the same spot. But other than the fact that there's not a lot of contrast because you're wearing dark colors right now, you guys have hoodies that I don't know if they're exactly the same, but they're similar color and a similar style. I mean, God forbid people having to tell you apart. I'm really glad that I don't live with you because I think it might be a little bit hard. But that kind of thing, something that coordinates or something that, again, that you feel good in. And that's why I say, doesn't have to be a business suit, doesn't have to be like a fitted dress or anything like that. If that's what you're comfortable in, wear that. I always say when I present on stage live, I like to wear my high heels. And not that I wear heels often anymore, but I feel that kind of, it's like my battle gear. I feel confident when I wear high heels. So I always wear high heels on stage. So those kinds of things, think about what makes you feel confident and then use that when you're getting ready for your videos.
All right. Emily asked a question regarding a camera. Emily, do you want to ask a question? Because I don't understand what you're trying to say. I can see you asked the question twice there, Emily. Oh, you forgot your question? Okay, let me read out. I am using, is that you? Camera because my laptop video is not working, but it looks like I'm using my laptop. I don't know. What exactly do you mean?
Yeah. So when Emily Rose was on earlier, because her Hue camera is like a separate camera from her laptop camera. And so she switched to show the difference, and it showed nice and clear as well too. So I think either of those cameras would work well for her.
Okay, cool. Because she looks very good now. It's very sharp. Whatever you're
like
using.
Your phone, maybe.
Whatever she's using, it looks nice.
Now she's sideways. Oh,
okay. Fair enough. Okay, cool. All right, so I guess that's it. If there's no other questions, right? That's it. Thank you so much. I'm bubbling. I've learned so much. Thank you so much. So girls, what do? You have all your camera turned on. Chigoze, where are you? Jody, Modesiree, Jessica, come on, turn on your camera. Emma, and let's say thank you to our beautiful guests for today. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So now turn on your camera and say thank you to you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you so much for having us. This was a really big honor. And later on, when you guys are working on your videos, if you want to have another session and talk about pitch videos again, I'd be more than happy to come back and play around. We can do an activity or something along those lines so that you can get a feeling for making your pitch video. I'd be happy to come back when you're ready.
That will be so good. Because to be honest with you, from my experience with the Technovation, most of the times they actually focus on the video. You know,
the video is their material.
It is. They don't even, at times, they don't even check the app. Some of them, because they don't know what's in the app. But if you present your stuff in the video very well, that's it. They don't bother looking at the app, but it's your video. So it's so important.
And in the world, when you're out there looking to get money for research or money for a business opportunity, your pitch is everything. We have a show here in Canada called Dragon's Den, where you have a minute to make your pitch. And from there, you either find it if you're getting the funding you need for your business or not. So I don't want to make it sound scary, but it is so, so important. And that's why I'd be more than happy again to help again later on when you're closer to your pitch videos, when you're doing your storyboards and talking about that kind of stuff. Feel free to lean on me whenever you need me. And I'd be love to come back and help again.
Absolutely. I take my bow. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So thank you. Bye for now. Thank you so much, girls. I'll talk to you soon.